Tyese Show, News and Ooze, where you get your news, but you'll always get your ooze. I am your host, Tyese. Welcome back. And before I go any further, make sure you download the Coyoteman Show on your mobile apps, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV. And you can even watch us live. As well, you can even contact us live at www.coyotemanonline.com/live. If you have a question for myself or you have a question for my guests, please feel free to contact us during the show. Alrighty, and let's get into it. You know how we start. We always start with the news. And before I do that, before I discuss the news with my esteemed colleague over here, I want to give you all the goodies about him. All right, now first, he is an author, a published author as well. He is a mental health counselor. He is co-founder of Above It All Counseling. Thank you. Welcome. His name is Sananda Edwards.
Thank you. So glad to be here. Appreciate you all for tuning in, and especially appreciate you, Tyese, for inviting me on. Excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes. So glad to have you. Now, as we get into the news for this week, I chose the topic that I chose because I'm going to make sure we segue right in, okay, and connect it to you being a mental health counselor. And I know you are going to drop so many jewels and so many nuggets today. I work with Mr. Edwards, and he has been exceptionally impressive to me. This is why I wanted to have him on the show. You'll hear everything that he has done and is doing, all of his accomplishments, and how he really is helping the community. So now the news. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he is actually stepping down now. And so this is, has been a news. And this was actually, this came up, his interview was actually posted today, because, they did an interview, of course. And what he is doing is, in stepping down, he actually worked for 7 years with 7 presidents. Okay.
Long time.
He actually worked, a very long time. Over 54 years, he's been of service.
And I feel like he got really just, I guess, popular. Like, everyone kind of got to know him during the pandemic period. Like, that's when everybody got to know him. Really got to know him. But he's been around that long.
Oh, he's been around with the National Institutes of Health for 54 years.
Wow. Half a century. More than half a century.
Yes, it's been a very long time. Wow. So within that, he started with AIDS. Okay, and so now, in working for and being the chief medical advisor for 7 presidents, of course, it was a hot topic time for him to work with Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
Okay, during COVID. Yeah. But now, and of course, y'all know how I do. I always put my glasses on because, I am of that age.
We both are.
Okay, so now he was with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Okay, and that's been for many, many years. Of course, we know he's a physician scientist, and again, advisor to 7 presidents, chief medical advisor. Now, when I want to get into how this ties in, and him stepping down, how this ties into him, working with us, with the United States and in the world, really, when it comes to COVID. In the one thing that I found very interesting in the interview is that as he's been interviewed, it was brought up how COVID affected the kids. Okay. Now, you being a mental health counselor, you work primarily with children. Now, do you only work with children?
So at this time, yes. The short answer is
Okay.
yes. Right now, we work with, especially Above It All, specifically, we
Mm-hmm.
work with young people ages 5 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now we do have the pleasure. We're excited to be expanding. We actually got the go ahead from our CARF accreditation to expand into working with adults with PRP, with substance use disorder (SUD). We'll also be working with young people with regard to substance abuse. But right now, primarily young people, and we will be expanding to work with adults literally in the coming months. Yes.
Okay, now now let the audience know what PRP is.
Okay, so I'm going to break it down and make it quick. PRP, first of all, is an acronym. It stands for Psychiatric Rehabilitation Program.
Mm-hmm.
What that means in a nutshell, young people who are going through different types of mental health obstacles, dealing with struggles of that nature. You're talking about depression, you're talking about anxiety, you're talking about the stresses,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about the behaviors that come from those different diagnoses, right? So if a young person is in therapy, and the therapist feels that they could benefit from a one-on-one counselor to kind of help them reach different therapeutic goals, that's where PRP comes in. So the therapist would refer to our organization or a number of other organizations throughout Baltimore City, and we would assign a direct care counselor to work with that young person one-on-one, again, to reach those therapeutic goals. The reason why I kind of break it down that way is because a lot of times people see PRP as just mentoring. It's a mentor, but it's a little more than that. It's actually therapeutic mentoring, which means that you have to be reaching those therapeutic goals that are set by the therapist, goals that are agreed upon with parents and the child. So everyone gets input on putting together this plan from the therapist, and then it's kind of laid out, and direct care counselors from Above It All are able to work with those young people and get toward those goals.
Exactly. Okay. Now, Dr. Fauci, what he was saying in this interview as to how COVID affected school age children, he said that really he actually believes that the kids should have never have been out of school for almost 2 years.
Wow. He said they shouldn't have been out of school.
He said they should not have been out of school for almost 2 years.
Wow.
He said ideally they should have stayed in school, but then the staff, anybody they're in contact with, should have been vaccinated and been made to wear masks.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. So part of his interview had to do with, well, you know, and that he's been called political, and he really did not back all of this. Okay. But and he's actually offended that he's being called political.
I'm sure. Like he's looking at, like, I'm a scientist.
Right,
So I'm not trying to
exactly.
be political. I'm just kind of putting out the scientific thoughts, his scientific thoughts on it. It's interesting. Wow.
And so, you know, he's a physician, and, you know, doctor of internal medicine. So now, but of course, you know, because he's had to be chief medical advisor, you know, for several presidents, then of course he gets tied in as to looking, you know, like he takes a particular political stance, you know, when really he advises medically. And that's pretty much as far as it goes. So now, for instance, when Donald Trump, when he said things such as how we can
I'm already guessing.
Go
Was it
ahead.
the bleach?
Yes,
Was it the
yes,
bleach? I figured.
yes.
Because that's the first thing. So
he was
it's like,
exactly bleach. Exactly. Oh, get rid of COVID with bleach. You know, he said it won't take long. You just pour some bleach on it. Let's just swallow bleach. How about that? You know. So when this was going on, and Dr. Fauci during that interview with Donald Trump, Dr. Fauci was actually right next. Was actually near. He wasn't far from him. Like he was near him. And he was saying in the interview that like he just wishes that he could just like stop him.
I'm sure he was cringing. I'm sure he was cringing. Exactly. He probably was cringing, like physically looking at him like
no, you didn't just say that.
Right. For years, we said, I remember we were in like elementary school. I don't even know if they still have them, but I remember the little green stickers that they would put on. They would tell, I don't know if you would
The
get them in school.
poison stickers.
The poison stickers. You would get the poison stickers and put it on there. So for years, those type of stickers were going on bleach, right? Going on bleach and all types of chemicals that you use. And good brother Donald Trump comes up and says, forget that sticker, man. Don't worry about that sticker. COVID, bleach, you'll be fine. Yeah. Incredible. I could imagine Dr. Fauci's face, like cringing. I could imagine.
Yeah. So in this interview, he detached himself. He really did. He's like, no, I had no parts in that. Believe that.
Yes, no parts. I get it.
I never said that.
Those are his words. His words. No medical backing.
Exactly. Not the words of Dr. Fauci.
No.
So, but like I said, what I wanted to really get into with his exit interview, I'll call it, is that they did definitely jump into COVID, and now with the kids being out of school for almost 2 years,
right.
How that had them, when they came back, it was like, of course, they had a decrease in test scores, grades, it's like the kids just really had a hard time, adjusting.
Absolutely.
And they did talk about that in the interview. And now Dr. Fauci, because I want to quote this, he said, when it comes to the mental for the kids being out of school for almost 2 years, he said there will be deleterious.
Wow.
Deleterious.
SAT word.
Right. Deleterious, which means harmful. Deleterious collateral consequences to the kids being out of school for almost 2 years. Yeah. And those were his exact words.
Look, already, I'll say this. And again, I'm in working with young people for years, and even now working with them, there is absolutely harm in any breaking of a routine, right? One thing that our young people, and then we enjoy it as well, but especially for young people, in my opinion, they get used to a routine. So they get used to going to school. They get used to their teachers. They get used to the bonding that goes on as they grow as young people. So anytime you miss a significant portion of time in anything that you're doing, there are going to be delays. It's going to be harmful in some way, especially when you think it's not just missing a day. It's not just missing a week. It's not just missing a month. It's not just missing 6 months, almost 2 years. You said that. So that being the case, it's going to be harmful in some ways, especially with regard to mental health. And we've definitely kind of run into some of those things. One of the things that we actually ran into. So again, when you offer PRP to schools, it's an activity that takes place out of school time. One of the things that we understand, our organization understands, is that our PRP treatment, our counseling, when we get with our young people, it needs to be done outside of school, again, because we don't want to break their routine. So generally,
makes sense.
We'll meet with our young people outside of school time. But what we started to get, a number of schools contacting us saying, we appreciate that you guys are offering PRP. We know that you do these things outside of school time, but we need help. We need assistance.
Schools. Contacting PRP companies to say, we need help.
Absolutely. And like and it's just as Dr. Fauci said, I think schools, especially when you're talking about principals, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about social workers, counselors within the school system, seeing young people come back and dealing with so many different things. First, again, you're talking about loss of academics for over a year. Not that there weren't incredible strides being made with regard to using like Zoom classrooms, Google classrooms, things of that nature. We know that those things were put in place, and we know that the school system did everything that they could to keep young people, try to push them, I guess, as much as they could academically. But again, when everything is being done on the fly, again, no one would have thought, you said that Dr. Fauci said that ideally they would have missed no school. But we didn't know about what COVID was going to do to us, how it was going to impact us.
Right.
So it's interesting to hear that he thought that way.
And it's all after the fact, and we didn't know. Of course, the first thing to do would have been to take to separate. To separate the kids. I mean, we were told to social distance.
Absolutely.
And we know that even non-pandemic time, we know the kids go to daycare,
Yes.
they go to school, they're touching all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And all that, and they're just these little germ
Yes.
these little germ bugs,
Germ factors, little germ bugs touching everything. Everybody.
Carriers of of these germs. So
Yes.
I mean, if that's what it is, non-pandemic, then of course, when the pandemic came about, what did we do? We panicked.
Yes.
It's so it's separate the kids. So because the thing was, of course, to keep them safe.
Absolutely.
To keep them safe. And then secondly, it's first keep them safe. Of course,
Right.
primary concern.
Right.
And exactly, keep them safe. And I did look up, we lost about 1,500 children.
Yes.
About 1,500 children died from COVID. Yes. And so, of course, primary concern was keeping them safe. And then second, how are we going to pick up with these academics?
Absolutely.
How are they going to, how are they going to still be able to learn, and us to attempt to establish a new routine?
Absolutely.
The new norm.
New norm. You got it. You got it.
For how they're going to learn.
Absolutely.
And there's so many factors that come into play, because you're talking about them having not just a possibly backsliding academically, but also
socially,
emotionally,
Absolutely.
overall mental, and one of my concerns as well is that, okay, so you have to understand, like, everybody learns differently.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have children that are all on these different levels. They all learn different, so you have children who had to attempt to adjust to this virtual atmosphere,
this new environment, the new norm.
Right, the new norm.
Academic norm.
And you have children who have trouble concentrating in school.
Absolutely. Right.
Anyhow,
anyway,
and
right.
then they were made to have to sit,
yeah.
For like my granddaughter would come over my house, sometimes and be in school, and I remember like her, like, it goes from this to this to
yeah, absolutely, yes.
And I mean, we as adults, like,
I remember, and what it makes me think about is, I think about being in college. Right, being in college and having 50-minute classes. We had 50-minute classes, and I remember that they're on. So that was like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I would have our 50-minute lectures, and everything was all good. But sometimes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we may have a 2 or 3 hour class. And I remember being in those classes. And again, you're talking about college age. You're talking about 18 plus.
Right.
And having to, after about an hour or so, I need to take a break. Let me go to the bathroom. Let me go to the store and grab some caffeine real quick, because I'm not able to stay up. And just think about that when you're talking about. So now you're talking about 5 through 18-year-olds.
Right.
And the differences in how long they'll have to sit there. So are you saying that an 18-year-old should be able to sit down for 6.5 hours and learn? And you're also saying that a 5-year-old should be able to sit the same amount of time in front of a screen, focused and paying attention? It's not something that should be expected. Right? It's hard. It's hard to deal with, whether you're 5 or you're 18 or you're 25 or 35. It's difficult to sit for 6.5 hours for that amount of time. So it's difficult. Yeah.
So it's easy to see that the kids would have, definitely had new challenges, academically, and, like you said, socially and emotionally. So you have the instance of, okay, they're having to sit in front of a computer. They're having to completely do all of their assignments online now. And how do they learn? I mean, some of us are visual learners, some of us are auditory learners, some of us learn by doing, more kinesthetic learners,
100%.
So with you, and then you have children that had IEPs.
Yes.
So, oh,
Wow.
and that was, and the academic challenge, was actually brought up in Dr. Fauci's interview.
I could imagine that, and I think about my time. I'm actually a former school teacher. I taught kindergarten. I taught fourth grade, and basically what you're talking about is what's called, and it may be a new term now because I taught 10 years ago, but it was called differentiating instruction. Ensuring that, so when you differentiate instruction, that means that you have young people who learn in different ways. You have to be mindful of the ways that those young people, the best ways that they can learn. You figure out the ways that they learn, and you try to teach to their strength. So you have to differentiate it. You have young people, like you said, who learn by doing. Some people learn by looking, just watching you. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn young people learn in so many different ways. But again, how do you do that when you're at home? And also another thing, not just about differentiating what it is that you're teaching them, but sometimes, again, when you talk about the social, when you talk about the emotional, what about the ongoing encouragement that young people get from their teacher physically being there and being able to kind of just lean down to them while they're working and say, you're doing a great job, keep it up. Or going around to that next person and saying, hey, are we focused? Are we good? Those types of things. Having the actual physical, just that presence of someone being there to encourage them along with pushing their academic aptitude. But again, we didn't know that. We had to be safe. So we had to kind of take steps back, come out of school, because again, you're talking about 1,500 children's deaths. And I'm thinking, I was in a conference over this past weekend with NAMI, if I'm not mistaken, National Association for Mental Illness.
Yes,
it's national, NAMI, right? They do amazing work.
Mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mental health organization, NAMI, right? So they do great work. And I think one doctor said that there were almost 1 million deaths. And I don't know if that was in the United States or worldwide. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's worldwide.
But you're talking about so many deaths. So early on, kind of like you said, it's hard to just kind of say, you know what, we should have just stayed in the classroom. We weren't sure. So that being the case, we had to kind of take a step back, and taking that step back, we knew that there was going to be some academic loss. But again, to your point, there's also going to be some social, emotional, and mental loss as well. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I pushed to do some of the work that we do. Like you mentioned, schools were calling us, asking us to find ways to come in and work with their young people. It actually started with one school in particular. And what they said that our young people are under various amounts of stress. Varying amounts of stress, and the way it was showing itself obviously is in behavior, not always listening, kind of being agitated and irritated, again, not being able to maybe focus as much as they could, but also when you look at, honestly, drug use. You have young people who were turning to these different coping mechanisms, these unhealthy coping mechanisms, because so much pressure is on them to continue and kind of plug away and do it and do all the things that they need to do as students, as young people, as a friend, as a brother, as a sister, as a son, as a daughter, all the things that we were kind of heaping on them. They were trying to figure out ways to cope, and sometimes those coping mechanisms came in terms of, like I said, drug use and making bad decisions with regard to just the friends that they're dealing with, or just different things like that. But you also have to realize that even with trying to figure out ways to maneuver through the pandemic, they still had to get their academics. They still had to make sure they were on point. And one of the healthy outlets was taken away from them in terms of extracurricular activities. They couldn't go play football. They couldn't go play basketball, volleyball, badminton. They couldn't do those things. Those things were taken away from them. So now they have to, some young people made the decision to turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms. And again, when you're coming back to school, it puts you in a socially, almost like a socially delayed place, because quite honestly, these young people are coming back to school after almost 2 years. Yes, we know academics is important. Yes, we know learning is important, but literally think about how we felt when we were able to see our friends again after being isolated. We were so excited to see them. We're ready to embrace. We're ready, but you can't do that. You gotta stay apart.
But you gotta wear a mask, and you have no touching and
none of that. So it's difficult. So it's really hard for them to sit and focus on just getting the academics when you're just so excited about seeing people again. You were seeing the same people probably in your house for almost 2 years. Now you get back to school, and the expectation is have a seat, stay socially distanced, listen, learn. It's tough. It's tough. It's really
Right.
really tough. It's tough.
And you're asking kids to pick back up exactly where they left
You
off.
got it.
Adults don't do that well.
It's like how
And
how can you?
right.
It's difficult. And again, and
Hmm.
I love what you just mentioned because these are things that we don't necessarily even expect from adults because what I found, what I saw was even in the workplace, you have a lot of different organizations and things of that nature making the decision to, you know what, we can do a little bit more work remotely now. We don't have to be in the building all the
Hmm.
time. And I
Hmm.
realize that's a lot different for young people. Sometimes it's more important for them to be around each other, and again for teachers to be
Right.
around them so that again they can motivate them and see different social cues and things like that to help them not just mentally, but I mean not just academically, but mentally and things like that. But really, if we look at our organization, some of them are saying, you know what, even with PRP, or initially PRP, it wasn't acceptable to meet with young people via telehealth, which means we couldn't call, video phone, video chat, things like that.
Exactly.
But
It should be in person.
they made it
Hmm.
should be in person. They
Hmm.
made the change because of COVID. You know what?
Right.
For this time period, and and they're already in talks. It's probably going to end pretty soon, probably next year, where telehealth may be taken off as a possibility. But the
Hmm.
reality of the matter is, while we're in COVID, organizations, laws were kind of, you know, there were stipulations made change to law saying, you know what, young people still need access to their mental health resources. So you know what, if it takes telehealth for them to get their mental health resources and support, allow them to get that support. So
Hmm.
yes, we can do telehealth. Yes, we can call them. Yes, we can make sure we're video chatting and things of that nature to stay in tune with our young people
Right.
because there's an importance that is put now on mental health that I think has to continue. And I think that people are starting to see the importance of it. And so you kind of have to make arrangements for it.
Makes sense.
No
Completely
question.
makes sense. And something else that I thought about is you. Okay, so children, they're home now. They're home during the pandemic. They're home with their parents who are having to do a lot of working from home now themselves. They're telecommuting.
Yes.
You know. Now remember too. I'm tying this all into, for instance, like in October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
Remember that it was that they were saying on the news that domestic violence, like reports of domestic violence, increased
It went out. It went
significantly
up.
during COVID.
Yes.
People in a house together and people's stressors coming out. No, the coping skills have changed
100%.
if there are any,
Yes.
And so I picture is children being home, they're having to adjust to learning virtually, but then they're also, what are they seeing at home with their parents being completely stressed out? Are they seeing
Yes.
things that they did not see before, with
Yes.
the parents getting into arguments,
Absolutely.
with the you may even have a parent that lost a job because of COVID.
Exactly.
Now the finances are
That's
stressed.
it.
I mean, that's so much for a young person to have to take on, and to have to see. And one thing we as parents minimize is the stress that our kids go
Going through.
through.
Yes. Yes. I think part of it, first of all, what you're saying is powerful. It's 100% correct. We do. I think that as we kind of go through life, we get to a point where we kind of build up a sort of a callus. And yes, the callus is part of it is there's this resilience that we have where we feel like we have to be able to bounce back. We have to be able to do our best in certain areas. And that's
Mm-hmm.
important. It's necessary, right? But at the same time, sometimes we expect our young people, our children, I'm thinking about my sons, right? And again, obviously the young people that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
but we expect them to have a certain resilience that they haven't been able
We
to
do.
build up yet. Like we have to realize they're learning and we really expect them. And it's something that we think about with our children and we think about honestly with people who are facing mental health struggles in general. Whether you're children or an adult, people expect you to bounce back. You'll be okay, man. Just look, just get it together, sister. You be fine. No worries. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And we expect people
Mm-hmm.
to bounce back and have this resilience. But the reality is, while resilience is important for us to have, we shouldn't have to exercise it all the time. And sometimes we put that on ourselves, excuse me, and sometimes often more importantly, or I'll say not more importantly, but equally as important, we put it on our young people. We have an expectation of them to show, improve, work hard, be dedicated. And those things are great, but we also have to make sure that they're doing whatever they need to do to take care of themselves. We have to make sure that we're open with them. We have to make sure that we kind of have this, how we talk about it at work, that open door policy for our young people, allowing them to kind of talk about some of the struggles that they are having. Because sometimes, to your point, we minimize their struggles. We minimize what it is that they're going through. And we have to stop. We have to listen. While we need to guide our young people, we have to listen. We have to be understanding. And we have to make sure that we're not expecting them to be superheroes. And what's crazy about even that, really quickly, is one of the workshops that I do, I always tell young people with regard to them that your emotional makeup, the way you are, the way sometimes we find out our young people, they take things to heart, they feel things really deeply, more so than us, because we have that callous, right? That's your superpower. It's okay for you to feel. It's all right for you to feel. Now, no, we don't want you to stay in dark places. We want you to strengthen yourself and be at your best, 100%. But you got to bounce back and be ready to hold it down. And we have to allow them the space to do that.
Exactly. Completely. I told y'all he was going to drop some jewels and some nuggets. All right.
Following your lead, sis. I'm following your lead. Appreciate you.
So we are going to go to commercial break, pay some bills, but make sure you come back. The Tyese Show, News and Ooze here at the Coyoteman Show Network.
We must secure our families. KFG Life Insurance Specialist is a company that partnered with 15 of the top life insurance companies to ensure you get the best pricing, knowledge, and products to suit your family needs. Some people believe that term insurance is better than whole life insurance, while others feel the complete opposite. Some may feel like universal life is the way to go, and others may feel it's better to have a whole life policy. The truth is, neither of the products are better. One just may be more suitable for your family. Our life insurance specialists are not biased, as they are partnered with several life insurance companies. This ensures our clients get the best pricing, education, and products that are suitable for their families. Let KFG Life Insurance Specialist make these decisions easier for you and your family. Our office is located at Security Square Mall, next to Burlington, in the Coyoteman Show Network. Please call to make an appointment at 443-400-5224 or go to www.lifeinsurancespecialist.org. That's www.lifeinsurancespecialist.org. Let KFG Life Insurance Specialist help you prepare your family in the present, because the future is not promised. Act now.
Show, News and Ooze, where you get your news, but you always get your ooze. If you're just tuning in, I am your host, of course, Tyese, and I have my wonderful guest here today, Mr. Sananda Edwards, who is a mental health counselor. He's doing wondrous things in the community and at schools, helping kids through mental and emotional health concerns. He's also a published author. So we're going to wrap it up with the news. Dr. Fauci is making his way to retirement. He's leaving has left the National Institutes of Health. So we're going to see who we get next.
Peace to Uncle Fauci.
Right. Right. All right. So, Sananda, you are here.
Oh my goodness. Hey, we are here. This is great. Thank you.
You're here. So I have quite a few questions for you and just some things that I definitely want everyone to know about you. And now you touched upon the PRP work, psychiatric rehabilitation, and you working with kids.
Yes.
And you also mentioned how schools are contacting the company that you work for, Above It All, and asking for PRP counselors to now come into the schools to help our youth.
Yes, and again, that's in the form of the workshops. Because again, we don't do PRP counseling in schools. It's definitely we do it out of school time. But with regard to the workshops and things like that, again, around effective limit setting. Again, about learning how to respect one another, respect yourself, and respect those around you. Learning how to figure out what your vision is for life, things of that nature, right? So it's about workshop development. Obviously, we touch on mental health a little bit, but the primary goal is making sure young people kind of look at themselves and figure out, hey, how can I be at my best? How can I get okay and then get to my best? So, yes, absolutely.
Now, do the parents factor into this at all with the workshops going into schools and helping the kids?
So the best way to describe it is, so we definitely let the parents know that we're engaging their young people in these workshops. And honestly, what it allows us to do is to kind of tell them about our organization, and if they make a choice to maybe talk to us outside of school and see if they can kind of get in touch with us to give their young people additional help with regard to PRP. So yes, we do let them know that we're working with their young people, but it's primarily done in school. In addition to that, though, we also offer workshops for parents. So you have some schools who, hey, we want workshops for our young people. That's it, absolutely. So we have the workshops for young people. It's called the Life Experience, launching into future endeavors. The Life Experience.
I like that. Launching into future endeavors.
That's it. It's called the Life Experience. So again,
Life Experience.
We talk to young people again about respect. About mindfulness, being present, being okay with where you are, staying focused, things of that nature. So we have a lot of fun with the young people. It's interactive. We can also do it via Zoom. We've figured out how to kind of do it via Zoom. Obviously not as interactive, but it's a piece that we know we needed to kind of put in there. But in addition to that, we have some schools will say, yes, we love the Life Experience. Do you have anything for parents? Yes, we do. We have coping with COVID. We have effective limit setting. We have kind of like an intro to mental health, understanding what mental health is. We have outside workshops that we do with parents. In addition, we also have staff trainings that we offer around the same things. We also have different types of CPR trainings, things of that nature. So our goal is always to make sure not only are we taking care of young people, we're taking care of their parents and we're taking care of their school environment by offering them the trainings that they need to be at their best. I always, again, take my hat off to teachers. I'm a former teacher. I love and appreciate what our teachers do. I think we can't thank them enough. At the same time, we definitely want to work with them they can get us better, we can sharpen them, they can sharpen us, and we can make sure that we're creating the proper environment for our children to be at their best, for our teachers to be at their best, and then for our parents to be at their best as well. So yes, we definitely offer workshops for parents as well.
That is a comprehensive program. It's fantastic. Now, aside from, of course, what kids had to go through being out of school for so long because of COVID, and now them they're been back for a while now and having to adjust, what would you say are some of the biggest obstacles that children are facing now?
So if I would have to say the biggest obstacle, I think it's something, it's not something that just popped up and came into, I think it got more of a focus maybe during the pandemic, but it's nothing new. It's literally us listening to our children. So often, again, we've already discussed this. So often for our children, we don't want to listen to them. Literally, I go into one of our the first workshop that we do with our young people when we introduce them. We ask them a very simple question. Raise your hand if you feel like adults don't always listen to you. And literally every hand raised quickly. Because so it's like, so you know what? We're going to create an atmosphere where we listen to you. Right? We're going to go through some things. We're going to try to pour into you in a certain way, but we're the adults that are here to hear from you. So to your question, one of the biggest things is us not listening to our young people. we have to make sure that we don't always want to hear what they have to say sometimes, but we have to take a breath. We have to take the time to listen to our young people, listen to what they have to say. There's nothing wrong with making sure that you are guiding your children, but we have to listen to what they have to say. And another thing I would say is making sure that we come in at them in different ways. Don't keep asking your children, how was your day? Because most 9.5 times out of 10, they're going to say, okay, or they're going to say, good. How was your day? It was good. You know what I mean? So what we need to do is we got to kind of find different questions to ask. Oh, let me ask you a question. Look, if I gave you $3,000 to take you and a couple friends on a cruise, who would you invite along? And so you make them think for a minute. I'll probably invite this person, this person, this person. All right, now tell me why. Why them? Why'd you choose them? Oh, because this person is funny. Now you're getting engagement. Now you're talking with your child as opposed to asking the same question every day. Then the next time you ask them, listen, so let's say I give you $3,000 and we gonna have a party. Who wouldn't you invite? Oh, who wouldn't you? So then you can kind of get, so why wouldn't you invite that person? You can kind of figure out things. You might figure out because that person kind of bullies me. Okay, now we need to figure out how we can deal with that. It opens up the lines of communication for us to really engage with our young people and find out what's going on with them.
Right. Bullying has been a huge problem,
This month.
And
October.
Yes, October.
National Bullying Prevention Month. October is National Bullying Prevention Month. So for our young people, we have to make sure that we're on point for them. We are engaged with them and open to them, and we're watching out signs to make sure that we're able to support our young people. But at the same time, adults as well. You can be bullied in the workplace. People can ask you to do way too much. I actually put something on my Instagram page about bullying in the workplace. Like, it's not something that just goes on with our children.
Right.
You have people stealing your ideas. You have people asking you to do way too many things and you not being able, feeling comfortable saying the things that you can handle that's outside of your job description, things of that nature, right? So we have to, again, October, National Bullying Month. Adults and children, we have to be on point with it and make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that we're finding ways to stop it and getting the help that we need.
Exactly. I love it. So now you were showcased really and featured with Black Enterprise,
Yes.
and then also with national radio programming.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
So I'll start with this. It basically came from my book. My book, The Extraordinary Mr. Nobody, A Beginner's Guide to Self-Healing. And what I'm showing you now is the original copy. It is a self-published book. It's a story of my life, the things that I went through growing up, the things that I dealt with, whether it was with my family, the things that I dealt with in college. It talks about, one of the biggest things that it talks about is my father's suicide, the mental health that he had, and then his suicide, how it affected me, how it affected my family, and how we had to, again, how that kind of springboarded me into work in mental health, realizing that initially when he did it, when I was about 12 years old. Right, so there was some misunderstandings there that I wasn't quite sure of. There was a time when I blamed myself for his death. I learned years later that he actually suffered from bipolar disorder, manic depression. So now I have to study, I have to figure out what that is, right? What's going on with that? And one thing that people don't always understand is that when your parents deal with a mental health illness, it's in your DNA to be susceptible to those mental health issues. So you have to kind of check in on yourself. Got a therapist, found out that I was then diagnosed with depression and approaching anxiety. So now I need to learn as much as I can about myself. I need to learn what I can about my dad. And now I have to impact others to get them to do the things that they need to do to take care of themselves. So that's where the book came from. Self-published in 2018, was able to be in Black Enterprise literally months later. Big shout out to my manager, Michelle Evans. She's incredible. She's also my cousin. I also say, look, they definitely help, right? But I always say she's amazing at what she does. She has an MBA. She's not, I just didn't put her on because she's family. I didn't just say, cuz, can you do this? She's amazing at what she does. So yes, Black Enterprise, and from there, the book kind of took off a little bit, and now I'm at a point where this, like I said, this is the first edition of the book. It will be re-released. I've been picked up by a publisher, Full Circle Press out of California. The book is going to be re-released in We're hoping January, February. The second edition will
Pretty
be
soon.
out. It's going to be
Right.
pretty soon. The goal of it is for it to be put into different schools. Dr. Marina Gilmore is amazing. She runs Full Circle Press. She saw something in me. She saw something in the book. So again, we're redesigning it. We're going to add some extra information, and it's going to jump off. But then I was invited, maybe about, I want to say like 2020-ish, 2021, for NPR. NPR decided to talk about my life, asked me questions about it, and I got interviewed by, they told me to choose someone. I chose one of my best friends, Larry Sadler. That's my brother, not even my friend. It's like my brother. And he was able to kind of interview me to talk about my life, my goals, the different things I was able to accomplish. And then that story was put into NPR. It's put into the Library of Congress, but it was through NPR's Story Corps. And I'm sure many of you have probably heard of NPR, I think it's called the Tiny Desk series with Usher was on it, and T-Pain.
Yeah,
and,
I've
Usher,
seen it a
watch
couple
this,
of times.
all that type of
I
stuff.
saw on the Tiny Desk series, I saw her.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a couple of singers that I saw. Jill Scott.
Yeah. Did you do a Tiny Desk? I'm gonna have to look for it. I love Jill Scott. No, I love Jill Scott.
I want to say Jill Scott.
Yes, I love Jill Scott. Yes.
I've seen a couple. I've like stumble upon them, and then I go ahead and watch.
Yeah, go ahead and watch it. That's how I am. Absolutely. So so NPR does a lot of amazing work. And again, StoryCorps is just a part of what it does. And a lot of people's stories can go into StoryCorps. Like, if you just look them up online, and they have just a lot of people's stories. But again, I'm proud to be able to say that I work with them, and that my story will live on forever in the Library of Congress, in the Library of Congress in DC. So I'm really proud of that. But yeah, but more than anything, it's about learning about myself, and figuring out ways again to impact the community as much as possible, be as healthy as I can, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those things, and then pouring that into others. And one of the biggest parts of that, honestly, is what's interesting is figuring out what success means. Because you talk about these accomplishments and things like that, and it's cool. I love it. Like, I'm excited to be in Black Enterprise. I'd love to be in there again. No question about it, right? I love for NPR to call me up again and say, hey, why don't you do another interview? I love for Oprah to call me and say, hey, let's come sit down. All that'd be great, right? But my idea of success now is figuring out joy. What's joy? And part of joy for me is using my healing, using my story to impact others and get people, and you and I have talked about this before, get people to be okay. Because a lot of people expect people to be at their best at all times. But before
like we're supposed to operate at this optimal level all the time, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, vibrationally. It's not real. It's not realistic.
Get okay. I need you to be okay, because if you get to okay, you'll be able to take that springboard to everything that you want to do, your dreams, your aspirations, all of that. Get to be okay. And that's how I seek joy first. Seek joy. Be okay. And then you'll be able to get to those other things. So very proud. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm very I'm very proud of this because, and what this goes to show is that you have springboarded your challenges, your trials, your tribulations, and into the book, and people can learn from this. Someone can take this and say, that's, well, I'm going through something similar, or I've been through something similar. They can read this and they can relate, and they, it may be someone who also is fighting depression and anxiety, so you want to pick up the book now. And how can they get a copy of the book?
So this book, this first edition is on Amazon. It can be ordered right off of Amazon. You can get it, no question about it. But I'm fine if you wait until the second edition comes out. Like I said, it'll be here in a couple months. The core of it is primarily the same, but when you work with the publisher, it is very different. It is very accountable. You're held accountable, and they pull things from you. They want to grow what you have. So yes, this copy of it is on Amazon. You can get it from there. Again, The Extraordinary Mr. Nobody, A Beginner's Guide to Self-Healing. But the second book will be coming out in the coming months, and that one will be available probably anywhere books are sold. We're putting it everywhere, no question.
I hear that. So now, what is the difference going to be from the first to the second?
Okay, so one of the things is going to be the book is going to be when you work with yourself and you self-publish a book, you have a vision for it. So your vision for it is how you can kind of lay it out, write it, basically upload it and sell it. And that's a great thing. It's empowering. It feels good to be able to do that, right? When you're with the publisher's going to ask you, each and every title. What this title? Why did you think to make it this title? The second chapter title, I don't really like this chapter title very much. This is what we're going to do. I need you to come with something strong. I need you to come with something more forceful. The first paragraph here, your first paragraph is supposed to feed into what the chapter is about. In this chapter, it doesn't seem like you're feeding in. It seems like you're talking, but you're not feeding into everything. So what they do is they streamline it. They sharpen you. They make you better. They make you think. I work with literally a publisher and a writer on her team. So now the book is going to be stronger with regard to its the way it's formulated. It's going to be stronger with regard to more stories. Like I said, the core of it is going to be the same. So if you got the first edition, trust me, it's going to be great for you to have the first edition. But go ahead and get the second edition too, because there's going to be some additions, additional stories, things made stronger, and really honing in on a message that will hopefully impact young people and potentially their parents as well. And that's another thing. I wanted my book to be able to help young people. I want this to be able to help young people, and I want it to be able to help adults. I want it to be able to help men. I want it to be help women, and that's great. That's cool. But you also have to pick a core audience. You may be able to impact that parent by impacting this child. So you have to pick a core audience. Who's your audience? Who is this book focused on?
I was going to ask you that exactly. Yes. Who is the target audience, for the book? What's the age demographic you're looking to touch with the book?
So it's primarily going to be high schoolers, like mainly high school into college. High school into college age. Males, yes, but young women as well. I think that young women have, again, a certain resilience about them that we have to teach. I'll say a certain resilience, a certain level of sensitivity that strengthens them, that sometimes our men need to be taught a little bit more. Sometimes our men are taught to just kind of have on a veneer of strength. And we have to learn to break down that veneer, keep the strength part, but be open to some sensitivities. So the book is primarily going to focus toward young men, high school and college age, but also young women will definitely be able to get something from it, no question about it. But I want to focus on that core group of high school age and college age young men, so that we can kind of strengthen ourselves and get better for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and be able to kind of expand that way.
Exactly. In writing the book, and the young men being primarily your focus, it helps to make sure that we're working with families and putting families back together, because there's so many different factors as to how our families and this is Black families, white family, it really doesn't matter. Absolutely. Because mental health challenges touches everyone. So our families have really been separated and apart because individually everyone is going through their own challenges, through their own trials and tribulations. And we really don't know how to help one another and connect, because we really may not know how to help ourselves. Absolutely. And I'll always say that we are all a product of our upbringing. Yes. And our experiences. And you mentioned resiliency earlier. We're not born with this book with instructions on, if this happens, this is what you do. Exactly. If that happens, what you want to do. Right. This is what you're going to do. I want to say it's the Bible, but that's another show. That's another show. Yes. Because the Bible really has every aspect of what is going to help us and how we're going to live. Yes. Yes.
And I actually love that you make that point. Someone said something again at this NAMI conference, and I forget the exact quote. I don't want to misquote her, but she said something to the point of the Bible and spirituality in itself is what you need with regard to fortifying yourself. But getting help, getting therapy, things like that, those are the tools that you need also. So it's okay to have a guideline. It's okay to have a guidebook, but you're going to need tools to build yourself as well. So it's important to take advantage of resources. While you have faith, you choose faith, it's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's important. But how does the Bible say? Faith without works
is dead.
Dead. So that being the case, have your faith. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to do the work. Do the work on yourself, as you were saying. Self-care, super important, taking care of yourself, and then being open to helping others as well. Though that's a pretty good that's a pretty good combination to get you where you need to go.
Well, like you said, it's a whole toolbox, you know. And when it comes to you know, leaning on and understanding of the Bible, you know, there are scriptures that you can look up at any time, scriptures, and you will find, I mean, numerous scriptures on depression and anxiety.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people don't understand that the
Amen.
Bible is your ultimate resource on how to live. However, we have to put it together with other tools that go into the box.
That's
you
it.
know, get therapy, get counseling, even with the company, you know, that you work for. Above it all, and with other PRP companies, the kids and adults are not allowed to actually have a PRP counselor without also having a therapist. A lot of people, you know, are really don't understand it. They're not one and the same. Okay.
Yes.
They are two entirely different entities. And then you have your psychiatrist as well. So you may have your psychiatrist that diagnosed anxiety, depression, you know, other mental illnesses.
Yes.
But then you go from there, from the diagnosis, then you're picking up a therapist, and you can pick up a psychiatric rehabilitation program counselor.
That's it.
You know, like yourself and myself.
Absolutely. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Absolutely.
As well. But all of that goes into the toolbox. And then, you know, you can, as the saying goes, you know, you can lead a horse to water. You knew where I was going with
Absolutely.
that. But you can't make them drink. And when it comes to, you know, so in other words, just like we said, you know, in the Bible, faith without works is dead. You know, you have to go into these programs, and parents need to go into the program, put their kids in programs like this, with the knowledge of, you have to go in and do the work.
Yes, 100%.
You have to go in and do the work. There is a therapy plan that is created, you know, of course, and within that therapy plan, you have steps, you know, that the child is taking, or the adult is taking, to get you to the point of, like you said, being okay.
That's it.
Discovering your strengths, your weaknesses, you know, where's your joy coming from? What is self-care? Why is that important? What do I do if I'm bullied in school? You know, what happens when I see my parents fighting?
Yes.
You know, and these are stresses that happen to kids all day, every day, even social anxieties.
Question.
And then suppose also there's been loss.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
Maybe grandma or grandpa, you know, died, and they have to understand how to work through that, you know, grief.
And really, to add on to that, because you just made an important point about grief, understanding that grief comes with loss, and loss can be death, but loss can also be in terms of I'm losing my school. I got transferred from this school to another school, and I've been with this friend for 5 years, and now I'm going to a completely different school. I have to get new friends. It's almost like the same thing with adults. We lose if we lose our job. There's a grieving that you have to go through when you lose your job, if you're fired from your job, whatever happens, you get laid off, whatever it is that's going on. So we have to understand that grief and loss, yes, it comes with death, but again, it can be loss of a school, it can be loss of a parent to incarceration, it can be so many different things that, you know, so it's not just death, but it's all these other kind of obstacles again and struggles that we have to deal with, that we have to be understanding of and work toward getting better with. That's what we have to do. So, and we have to understand, and we also have to be able to accept people who are grieving whatever it is that they're grieving. They're grieving, again, losing that job, losing that parent to incarceration, losing that best friend who transferred out of the school, whatever it is, a lot of different things going on, along with losing your grandmom that passed away, losing your aunt, your uncle that passed away, different things like that. So grieving is a huge deal. And again, we have to learn to lean on each other and not just lean on resilience. Bounce back, get over it. No, we have to feel our feelings, okay, to feel those feelings, and then work to find the healing. That's what's important as well.
One thing that you brought up is that, you know, like you said, you really want the young men, to get into the book. One thing about being raised, as a young man, is I know young men have been raised to not really express their feelings,
Exactly.
and that has become a complete problem in our homes, not being able to express yourself. So now you have this young person who who was taught, man up, you ain't gotta cry for this, you being a baby, and then
You're
you
acting
have
like a girl.
you're
You're
acting
acting
like
like a
a
girl. You're
girl.
you're
Oh my
being a baby.
goodness. Right, you're being a baby, you're acting like a girl.
Not okay.
Oh my
Not
goodness.
okay.
There have been
Not okay.
so many statements that have been said to these young boys, to these young men, and it's just confusing to them.
It is. And we have to get to a point where we, like I said, we value ourselves, take care of ourselves, and value ourselves and value others. We need our young men to value our young ladies. We need our young men to value other men. Some of them don't often have relationships with their fathers. Sometimes, obviously, there are amazing fathers doing amazing things, and there are amazing people who stand in. Whether you're talking about stepfathers, you're talking about coaches, and all that type of stuff. It's great. It's something that obviously needs to be applauded, and a light needs to be shed on those things. That's amazing. At the same time, we need our young people again to kind of fortify themselves, be the best that they can, and like I said, within valuing themselves, but also be able to value other people, especially women. Be able to value women, respect yourself, respect women, because that's where community starts. That's how community starts.
Right.
Respect, valuing one another, but all of that starts with valuing yourself.
Valuing
It's
yourself,
hard to value
self-love.
someone else. It's hard to love someone when you don't love yourself. So we have to figure out ways to do that, so that we can kind of spread the love. That's how it works.
We in young men and young women that do not learn how to value themselves, that don't learn self-love, of course, do what? Look for it elsewhere.
And it's not always in the best ways. It's not always in the best ways. It can be manipulative. It can be damaging physically and mentally. So that's why, again, to your point, you make a great point. It starts with self-love, loving yourself, having standards, valuing who you are, respecting yourself. It's one of the workshops that we do, actually, where we have, and it's actually an activity that I borrowed from my good brother David Miller, who has an amazing curriculum, Dare to be King curriculum.
Dare to be King.
Dare to be King.
I like that.
Oh, he's incredible, David Miller.
David Miller.
Yes, he does incredible work. Literally throughout Baltimore, throughout Maryland, throughout the country, and in other countries. He's incredible. He's one of them. I'm proud to have him as a mentor, but he's born and raised right here in Baltimore. And again, that Dare to be King curriculum, one of the activities that he does is this respect activity, where you have these lists of different people and you ask them to kind of put who should be respected most in order. And you have, police officers, politicians, teacher, parent, student, drug addict, someone just coming from prison. Where do you rate them with regard to respect? And it's always interesting to see how young people rate different people and their different answers and things like that. But the reality, the purpose of the activity is to show them everyone should be same line. You give everyone the same respect. You shouldn't put anyone above any other person. And you find out that some people will put the drug addict at the bottom, but then you have some people who have drug addicts in their family, so they're not going to put them at the bottom. They're going to put them further up, right? So again, because they love and respect their family members despite the issues that family member may be having and trying to heal from, right? So that being the case, again, those are the things we have to learn: finding our voice and finding value and respect in ourselves and others. Huge. It's important.
Huge. So now the last thing that I want to ask you, I ask every person that comes onto the show for an exclusive interview, is how has this entire journey and been therapeutic for you?
Okay, so good question. Wow. So I would probably say two things. I think I mentioned one earlier, was finding my definition of success, which is finding joy. Many people may see success in cars and clothes and houses and financial, you get it, right? Which if that's where you find your success, nothing against you, that's fine. I find my success in finding joy, finding family, finding my tribe. So that means that that's going to be biological family, it's going to be extended family, it's going to be my friends, it's going to be people who I know and love and are able to impact others. So that's the first thing, finding my definition of success, which is lasting joy. And the second thing is probably being able again to kind of impact others in some way. I really don't believe in the mantra. I believe that we kind of take on different cliches. And one of the cliches that I hear often is, and I get it, I hear it. It's, if I could just impact one person, and I get it, I understand it, I appreciate it. I also believe that our calling is greater than that. It can't just be one.
We cannot,
right? It can't just be one.
Yeah, like the person coming up with the each one teach one. It's a great concept. It's a great concept. However,
let's teach two. Let's teach three.
Exactly.
Let's teach five.
Let's teach
let's
the masses.
Teach 10. Let's teach 100. So, and again, without burning yourself out, without taking on too much, I just believe that we do have to figure out ways to impact as many people as we can, as often as we can. Also, again, understanding self-care, not burning yourself out, being able to set proper boundaries and things of that nature. All those things are important. But I also believe that if we are going to get our communities and get our people to the way we want, then we have to kind of push ourselves to impact people. So I think that's been the biggest part of my kind of therapeutic process, finding my joy and understanding that what's in me, what God put in me, is to impact others and impact as many as I can while staying healthy, impact as many as I can without losing my marbles, without, by keeping myself sane, and keeping myself okay, and then launching to greater successes.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Right. You're definitely on that springboard,
Thank you. Yes,
launching yourself to greater successes, and in doing that, helping the community, helping children, school age, like you said, young, very young, 5 actually to 17,
Absolutely.
going to different schools and helping psychiatric rehabilitation program counselor. So I want to thank you again for coming on to the show. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows how to follow you, get in touch with you, give your website.
Thank you so much. Please go, you can reach me at www.sanondacares.com. That's spelled TSANONDA Cares, CARES. You can find me on Facebook, Sanonda Edwards. Again, it's spelled with the T. The T is silent, like tsunami. Sanonda, TSANONDA Edwards. And then you can find me on Instagram at Sanonda, TSANONDA. Please look forward to following. You can actually, when you look at my page, get some mental health tips, all that good stuff. I try to put that on my page daily. So yes, looking forward to engaging with you all and adding to my tribe. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Right. Thank you. The Tyese Show News and Ooze. We're here every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. I thank you, Sanonda, for coming on to the show.
Pleasure.
All right. And we will see you next week. Thank you.